A very good morning, one and all, for the last day of the FTP. And this session basically on the 3D printing in oral and maxillofacial surgeries. So that is not the literature I am going to talk. So I am going to talk only the cases, that is the medical cases which we have done with various medical surgeons or the departments, like right from the cranioplasty, craniofacial department, dental department, oral maxillofacial. But in some of the countries, the dental and oral maxillofacial may be the part of the same department, but in some countries it may be different. Of course, I'm going to talk some of the dental case studies which we have done with the dentists, and next specialized doctors are oral and maxillofacial surgeons. And I'm going to present a very few cases here, so which we have done with the doctors. So we have other cases, even we have worked with cardiac surgeons also to design and develop minimal invasive surgery devices. Also we designed and made the prototypes, but that I am not presenting here. And apart from this, we have worked with some other orthopedicians also. But and this lecture I am predominantly planned the cases which we have worked with the oral and maxillofacial surgeons. So coming to the presentation outline, so let me give a small introduction to the medical 3D printing. And I'm going to discuss 6 cases catering into the different intentionally I put some cases or accident cases, or some cases are byborn, and some cases are cancerous, and some cases are some diseases, or some cases are by birth, some defects. So then intentionally I picked one case from each case. Then I'm trying to present here. So right from the case one is a cranioplasty. Actually, when come to this medical domain, these words are derived from Greek, either Greek or Latin. That's what you may feel some difficulty to acquaint with the terminology used in the medical domain. So, but whatever I know, I will try to transfer the same thing to you, and you can transfer to your students or your PhD scholars or whomever so you want to address. So the general, and if you see all these cases, either a cranium or cranium is the one. If you divide our head, we can divide our skull into, in fact, skull bone into 3 major parts. So if you take lower jaw is part of your skull, the lower jaw you call as mandible, and similarly you have upper jaw. The upper jaw you call as maxilla, and anything other than this lower jaw and upper jaw, and predominantly it may be protecting our brain. So that bone you will call as a cranium bone. So, and the specialist who works on this bone, the cranium bone, called as a craniofacial surgeon. Craniofacial surgeon. And the person who works on the lower jaw, that is called mandible, and the upper jaw, that is called maxilla. That person is called as, of course, oral. Oral is, as you know, that inside the mouth. So sometimes you will call it dental doctor also. So it is basically a specialization which I am predominantly talk on oral, that is inside the mouth, of course, which covers lower jaw and upper jaw also. That is a oral and maxillofacial surgeon, or the surgeries which we have been doing with the oral and maxillofacial surgeons. I'm going to discuss how this 3D printing technology is helpful for them. So basically, it is a medical application, and that too, the hands-on which we have done on the patients with the help of our collaborators, that is doctors. And finally, I'm going to give a future direction. As we know that, so whatever these cases, that is substitution of a bone, you are trying to replace a bone, either it is a orthopedic or either it is a oral maxillofacial or it is a craniofacial, you are replacing the bone with some implant or some prosthetic or some, you may use some device or you may use some templates to assist the surgery. So that's what normally, or you may use it for diagnosis purpose, these models. So you may have several applications of these biomodels which are derived from the patient data. So you have several, but all are maybe either a bone or some extent it may be a soft tissue, or if you go one step ahead it may be tissue. But what could be the future? The future could be organ printing. It is not a bone replacement, or it's not going to be a tissue replacement. It's going to be organ transplantation or organ replacement or organ repair. So that is going to be the future direction. Anyway, we'll discuss all these things for the next 1 hour 15 minutes. So then if you recap the applications of 3D printing, so as for the Fowler's report, the first share of this application goes to the consumer products or the consumer electronics, that is with the figure 21.8%. So this is the recent statistics from Fowler's report. And if you see, the second place goes to the motor vehicle, that is 18.6, that is automobile as well automotive together, it is say with the 18.6 share for the motor vehicles. And if you see, the third place is the medical and dental together, so it is 16.4, almost it is on par with the automobile or automotive. Why? The reasons are many. First reason which we need to talk, maybe the complexity of the anatomy, and second maybe the customization or the personalization. So that may be the second driving force. Whatnot. So we can say a lot of driving forces, but majorly These are the two driving forces why 3D printing is so popular in medicine. And then within the medical applications, so if you plot the graph between expectations and the time, so normally this is called as a hype cycle or a Gartner cycle. So Gartner is the person who will do a lot of research every year on the emerging technologies and how many years of time it will take to transfer from one phase to other phase. What do you mean by that? Say if you see initially this part is called a technology trigger, means initial state, and then right now dental is at the most hype or the most expected, more expectations on the dental applications where we can see. So that is the peak of inflated expectations. So the dental applications of 3D printing is in the most hyped one. But whereas if you see the medical research or bioprinting or organ printing, so that is just initiated, that is the technology got triggered, so it may take long way to come here. What is this? So if you see here, this is almost the plateau of productivity. So means more usage or the commercial usage or the kind of almost like a productivity state. So which we can very soon, the orthopedic applications will reach to that mark of plateau of productivity. So means it will move and slightly all the technologies will move maybe over the period of 10 years or 15 years or so. So definitely the orthopedic applications, orthopedicians are the early users of the 3D printing technology for the joint replacement or finger replacement or whatever the orthopedics or practicing or orthosis. So anything is related to your bone and the orthopedic kind of applications. So orthopedicians were the early users, and almost it is touching to the plateau of productivity. And of course, next is followed by dental. Slowly it is coming. And of course, you have bioprinting, long way to go to come here. But we can see that also. But orthopedic applications, it is coming almost like a productivity state. So this is the state of art of medical applications of 3D printing. So then, as we know that even we have seen some demos from Rakesh on Mimic software, which we need to start with the CT or a MRI scan data, or it can be digital X-ray also. But as we know that 3D printing, it requires a digital data, irrespective of the scanning modality. So let it be a CT or let it be MRI or let it be a PET or let it be a ultrasound data or let it be a angiogram or let it be a endoscopy. So there is no restriction. So but like how we are getting .stl file in case of engineering applications, that is a de facto standard. Here you save the file in your scanning modality into as .dicom. So .dicom, once you save your data, either you derive from any one of scanning systems. So you save that in the scanning domain itself as a .dicom. So then you import that .dicom images into any one of your medical image processing softwares. So which one is the Mimics is the proprietary software, and you have Slice 3R or Slice 3D. You have a plenty of open source softwares also to perform this job. So you need some medical image processing software to process this data. But nowadays you have a very good developments in the scanning. You have cone beam CT. Cone beam CT, even it can generate volumetric data directly. not images. You have a lot of developments coming to the CT, or the in general the scanning diagnostic, medical diagnostics. So you have a lot of improvements are happening. So nowadays even you can generate a volumetric data also, need not be the black and white JPG kind of images or DICOM images, need not be. You have a very good technological improvements. It can be even a volumetric data, but whatever it is, say, but you bring it to the CAD interfacing software, and then from this step onwards, you know how to orient, how to give the supports, and how to slice it, and how to generate the G code or fab3 file, or it can be a .cli or .sli or .cmb, so whatnot. Like, say again, that is the the printer designer, the printer developed software. There is no such standard like STL for generating the slice data in the 3D printing community. So anyway, once you have done that uh, slicing and generating the tool path, and of course we need to send it to the 3D printer, and where you have started with any one of these biomodel or bio uh, region of interest, maybe skull, full skull, or maybe the hand or a leg or whatever it is, say, where you have captured from the any one of the medical scanning devices. So you are going to get your digital images, which of course you collected from the physical patient, and you have converted the digital, and again you are converting as a physical here. That is bio model. You call that as a bio model, and this bio model will be used in several folds, right? So that we will discuss. You may use in several folds once you made these bio models. So then why we need a physical model? You have a virtual model or a computer generated model in the computer, but why you need a physical model? So of course you have a lot of visualization problems in case of digital scenario, and this is going to be a virtual model, but you don't have feel, touch and feel, so no physical feel of area of interest when you are working with the virtual models or the CAD models. But once you go to one step behind your virtual to the physical, so where you can see these are the some of the physical models which are derived from the patient, so which you can see. So there is a femur joint, and in fact there is a hip joint, total hip. So you have a hip pelvis bone, you have a pelvic bone, and you have femur bone, and in fact you have vertebra. So you have a full this is got 3D printed, and how beautifully, otherwise if you're having a physical the virtual model of it, so it is very difficult to understand. Maybe this may require several surgeons to work together, but we can very much communicate if you are having a physical model like this. Or let it be like this, I am talking about the lower jaw is called as a mandible, and upper jaw is called as a maxilla, and you have a cranium bone, so which will protect the brain, the skull portion, that is called as a cranium bone, whatever it is. So how beautifully you can print these physical models. And then what is the advantage of printing a physical model? So I will try to explain that advantage by using this a simple, or rather than one example, where a patient requires some kind of reconstruction, or due to some accident or some tumor or some cancer, say for example. So he has to replace, he or she has to replace, say here, say for example, what I am trying to say, like how you are talking about the complex product designs in case of engineering scenario. Here also, for a doctor, this is a very critical or a complex surgery. Why it is so complex surgery? So why it is complex surgery is, so I will try to explain one or two points why it is complex. Say, for example, you have designed some implant here. Why? Because he has broken this part, the bone, which we need to, or some cancer we have removed, and we need to augment it with some kind of implant. So, and whose job is this? First of all, whose job is this to operate? Say, of course, as we already know, this part is the upper jaw. So then we say that maxillofacial surgeon job. Fine, but if you come to this portion, and where you have this orbit or orbital portion, you have orbital rim. So this orbital portion and this orbital rim, so this is the job of an ophthalmologist. Why? Because you have to invite the ophthalmologist. So only the maxillofacial surgeon is tries to perform this surgery. So in that course, so if the eyeball is not sitting properly at this orbital position, so this patient, there will be a chance of losing his vision. So that kind of a difficulty is there once you are not inviting the ophthalmologist along with the maxillofacial surgeon. So you now you got what is the importance of this surgery, and inter departmental people has to work, either the ophthalmologist or the oral maxillofacial surgeon, and of course you may have some nerves, or you may even call sometimes the neurosurgeon also, maybe. So so we need to involve. Why? Because it is not a single person job to perform this surgery. So it is an interdepartmental or various the specialized surgeons has to work on this together and come out with the best solution or the best surgical procedure. So that is the aim. So then in this context, how 3D printing is going to help for the maxillofacial or ophthalmologist, or even a neuro guy, any kind of a domain. But for this point of time, these guys may be important. So if you have a physical model with you, and then they must very well rehearsal the surgery on this before going to the operation theater. Otherwise they have to experiment during the surgery, right? So but 3D printing is giving them an opportunity to rehearsal the surgery, complex surgery, not a routine regular surgery, this one. So it's a complex surgery, of course. So it will allow you to have such kind of opportunity. So then why we need a physical model is where your surgical team which communicates better, and even you can educate the patient also. This is what you have some tumor or some cancer here, we are going to remove and we are going to augment it with some kind of implant here. Like that you can educate the patient, and not only communication between the various surgeons involved in the surgery, or even we can very well educate the patient about the case. And of course it may assist the surgeons with diagnosing and surgical planning. So they can diagnose rather than seeing on the virtual models or the images, black and white or gray images. So then you can very much use this for either diagnosing or planning the surgery, like what kind of a tools or the instruments or the devices he has to take into the operation theater while performing a real surgery, right? So you can very well plan the surgery, and not only that, so you can rehearsal the surgery. So why? Because it has derived from the patient data. So then very well we can correlate this same rehearsal can be performed during real time operation. and do simulations also. Of course, you can come out with the best practice of the surgery. So that is what you're going to get the advantage once you have a physical model with you. And of course, you can create a customized prosthetics. So that is what where this is of course a customized implant you are going to need not be every time the implant. Sometimes where we need to design and fabricate the prosthetics. So then it will allow you, your physical model or your bio model will allow you to even design and fabricate the customized prosthetics. And of course, finally, so you can place the implant accurately. So where we need to place, so which we can see how to attain this curvature at the orbital portion and whether it is fitting correctly or not, right? Otherwise, we have to place the eyeball in a proper position and your curvatures of this should match and it should be customized as for the patient data and as for his patient anatomy or the geometry or the form. Why? Because it's a free form, it is not a standard form. Of course, we know that it's a God's design, so definitely it's very complex. And where we can accurately place these implants once you have a models. So then 3D printing is 30 or 31-year old technology. But what they used to do, and of course, no way they used to go with the subtractive NC milling before the additive or a 3D printing process. So it starts with the anyway, you know that either even the practice will start with the 3D CAD model of anatomy and which is derived from CT MRI, and the shape of the model is milled. In milling, I am talking about, it should be milled from the block of polyurethane or a foam or any material. But the limitations are the challenges. So you have very complex geometries. Of course, anatomy, human anatomy, anywhere it is very complex. So we need to every time work with the complex geometries like which you may have inside undercuts, voids, internal geometries like neurovascular canals. So these are the challenges. Like if we are having a bit of medium complex parts also, then we have to do several exercises in case of traditional NC or CNC. But this is all consists of a neurovascular canals and the internal geometries, undercuts, voids. So it's very difficult to programmer to program this kind of a thing. And of course, the materials also may be brittle, soft, and non-sterilizable. So that is another issue where you just like that you cannot take these biomodels inside the operation theater. Then either you may use a different kinds of sterilization techniques right from the alpha kind of a thing, or even it can be a TT or it can be autoclave. So, but it should support any one of these three methods of sterilization of these models once your intent is to take these models inside the operation theater and intra-operatively you want to work on these models, and definitely we need to have sterilized these models, and then models should withstand your sterilization temperatures or pressures or whatever it is. So of course these are some of the limitations or the challenges if you go with the traditional NC or CNC practice. And of course you can overcome all this once you come to the 3D printing route. That's what people are much interested. The medical fraternity, they are looking for help of a 3D printing community to work hand in hand. And applications, we can talk about a lot of applications as far as 3D printing in medicine is concerned. But still in India, we could not even detach the conjoined twins. Now there is a case in Telangana. They passed 10th class also, means they have completed 15 years, which in India we are able to address such kind of complex surgeries. But somewhere else, people are using this technology to separate the conjoined twins. It's how complex this surgery is, right? Say you may have a common neurons and you may have a common brain neurons and things like that. It is a very complex, otherwise the most complex surgery in the world, we can put it in that way. So then yeah, people are able to do it so very easily. They could able to use this technology to separate the conjoined twins. So not only separating the conjoined twins, you have, as I already mentioned, orthopedicians or the early users of this technology. So total hip replacement or total knee replacements are happening. Tons of literature or the case studies you can find. But unfortunately, in India, very few by using 3D printing process, and of course, the insurance also won't cover. And then once you talk about, then we need to talk about a lot of policies also. No, I am sorry to say that in India we are lagging very behind, and nowhere from European countries or US or Australia or any other country. So we are nowhere. No, then we have to change a lot of policies. Anyway, so you have orthopedic surgeons. They are using a hip or a knee or finger joints, whatnot. Everywhere you can use this orthopedic applications. And dental implants, of course, dental in the sense maybe uh, dental copings or dental uh, teeth aligners, bridges, dental bridges, copings. You have several such kind of applications where the dental implants can be used. And cranioplasty, we can see some of the cranioplasty applications where the cranium portion, where it should be implanted with this kind of implant. And of course, you have some fingers and oral maxillofacial, where we can see there is a maxillofacial surgeon. He or she needs a kind of implant. Normal practice, they may use some kind of plate, the steel plate, and try to um, take bone grafting they used to do back. But that you cannot, through bone grafting, you cannot achieve this curvature or this portion, how exactly which you are going to. But 3D printing will allow you to make a symmetricity, maintaining the symmetricity. Of course, thanks to the CAD technologies and medical image processing softwares, and of course scanning techniques. So we could able to do this one, right? And you have other orthopedic applications. And not only these, like you have a biomedical devices can be, no, this is about bio models which we can, or even you can make a biomedical device, so which can be used for your purpose. And it can be a biosensors by using 3D printing technologies, and you may use a bio-MEMS devices also. So wherever you have high-end applications of this, definitely you have a lot of developments in the 3D printing technologies also. Now you could be able to even print lot of electrical or electronics materials or smart materials also. So then you can venture into these kind of applications. And of course, microfluidic devices for bioprocess and bioseparation, there is another application where. And augmented tangible molecular models for research and education. So this is for normally if you the house surgeons, especially the house surgeons, normally they will be given this kind of a cadaver bones or a dry bones for doing some kind of operations, practicing the operations. But you know the difficulty in the cadaver bones to preserving them into solutions or maintaining the kind of dry bones or a cadaver bones. It's very difficult. But here 3D printing will come you into the rescue. So where even beautifully you can even vascular structures, or even beautifully we can print them, which otherwise it's in white color if it is a cadaver bone. But you have an advantage where multiple organs, or like in tandem, we can print bone, we can print what you call the soft tissue or root canal, so whatnot. So you can do a lot of stuff. So maybe for the education or the research and education purpose, or for the training purpose, for the what you call house surgeons, things like that. So you have plenty of things to work on this 3D printing in medicine. So let me start the first case study. So this case study, which we took from one of the facial surgeon, so where he needs some kind of implant, but we didn't implant it. And let me say, as I already given some introduction to the applications part. So applications part, so you can have different levels of applications. The first level of application is just for diagnosing purpose, just for visualization, or just for communication purpose. So that will be the first level of application. And second level of application, we can put it, that can be used for planning the surgery or the rehearsal the surgery. Still, you are not implanting anything inside the patient body. So just you're using outside, means maybe intraoperatively sterilize them and take it inside the operation theater and do some kind of a rehearsal, or intraoperatively you can work with these models in the operation theater. So that is the planning or rehearsal kind of application. But we will come to the third level of application, is the implant or the prosthetic design and the placement of the implant. So that is the third level. And of course, fourth level is going to be the bioprinting. So in that way, we can put it the order of complexity, or the level of application of these models in the biomedical applications. But let me start with some initial level applications. And we have reached up to the third application, or third level of application, that is up to the implantation. And then, so only one left out. That is also, we are trying to venturing out into that last one also, but it requires a lot of resources and a lot of collaborations and things has to be done a lot. It's not two or three persons are the fraternities, so it has to work with cell culturing, and it has to work with pharma people. So it has to no, it has to work with several folds. But anyway, so let me start with the first one is the cranioplasty kind of application. Basically, we have done modeling and analysis, and we fabricated, but we didn't implant it, just for the planning. That's what I'm saying here. So here, of course, we have used two softwares here to do medical image processing softwares. Those are Mimix and Trimatic. So we have predominantly used these two softwares to design the implants. And of course, Mimix will be having its some limited capabilities in terms of implant design, but Trimatic is a exclusively software to work. No, it's good for the implant design. So we have used both the softwares almost wherever we have the implant design. So we have even, along with the Mimix software, we have used Trimatic software also to perform such kind of designs. So this is the typical Mimix. I think the Rakesh might have given the some demo also on this Mimix software. I am not going to go in detail, but the idea here is, or the challenge here is, the skull thickness is not uniform. So that is the challenge where we need to work with. So once you have designed some implant for this portion, where the cranium portion where we need to design it, so then how your designed implant is getting fitted, the fitment, you have a variable thickness. Of course, it's a variable thickness, it's not a uniform thickness which your skull is having. And that too, your skull is not a solid bone which you are looking at, cut and open and see inside. So there is some kind of lattice structure, or there is a porosity is there inside. So you may be having outside. So, and of course, we need to do several measurements and several So whatever those kind of Narayana, so we can do such kind of simulations, or like you have designed implant and you want to check the fitment of it, and of course which we can see in this, and further you can print like various designs, so maybe 1 2 3, and even physically also you can check that fitment. So then we have done a kind of customized cranium implant for the surgical planning. So, and then further, not only fitment, even the challenge here is there is a fluid called cerebrospinal fluid, CSF. It is something like kind of a water kind of a solution, but it will be generated, or it will be um, from the brain to the spine. So it will be continuously pumping this um, cerebrospinal fluid. But challenge here is like, if you that pressure of the cerebrospinal fluid will affect, it may have a different pressures if you have a different postures, of course. And the challenge here is like, once you design and you are trying to fitting this implant here, so and then we need to fit this to the skull. This is the implant, and then this is the skull, the native skull, and this implant, and we need to fix it. Then for fixing, so you have some guidelines and some rules in the craniofacial surgery. So then how many fixation points, and in such a way that your pressure should be uniform. So then we have done some kind of a simulation, and we have tried with different materials. So we have tried with titanium, we tried with PEEK, and unfortunately we doesn't have much choices here. Why it should be FDA approved material? So we have some kind of a polymers like PMMA or PEEK or titanium in the metal. Then we tried with these materials and coming out with some kind of you know analysis on this, then which material it will be. And then of course which we have done some kind of what you call, we have done this uh, the homogeneous kind of scaffold based algorithms we have developed, which is, if normally these softwares, if it is a symmetric defect, I think you know what is a symmetric defect, but symmetric defect, if it is an accident or the disease or the trauma or cancer, we doesn't know how it's getting formed, how it will be propagated. So definitely it is not a symmetric defect. And then which the commercial algorithms may good for the symmetric defects, but even we have developed our own algorithm to even extend for the non-symmetric defects. And even we have come out with some algorithms which we have used Rhinoceros, and along with the Rhinoceros we have wrote our own code to do these kind of what you call the reverse engineering approach or the curve fitting to tackle even non-symmetric defects also. And as already mentioned, you have closely watched this skull bone, which you have the inner part, that is which is adjacent to the brain. So it will have its thickness, different thickness. It may be a bit thicker than the part which is outside, which I'm trying to say, it is outside of your skull, and this is the inside of your skull. So the thickness is not uniform. And of course, if you see, this is a kind of a sandwich structure. So this is a lattice structure basically, right? So your 3D printing is very good. Conventionally, you cannot fabricate. Are you able to fabricate through machining this kind of a lattice structure, you can't. So only 3D printing can give you the solution for this. And of course, even you can mimic the structure or the porosity. This porosity is also right. It's not, it may be for this patient customized porosity, and exactly you can mimic the bone through your modeling and then further 3D printing, and then you can fit it to the implant to the patient. But we didn't do surgery, but this was helpful for the planning the surgery for the particular patient. That's what we have done. So this is the first case regarding craniofacial domain. And coming to the dental, so dental we have comparatively less challenge than the previous case. Why? Because cranium is the most critical bone. Why? Because you have a brain very adjacent to your cranium bone. So then there is a very challenge, and you have to be carefully operate. But dental, it may not be that way, right? So something goes wrong, what it's going to happen? So it may be harm to the bone, but not harm to the life. Right? So anyway, so dental, you have dental. The dental challenge here is, and again, this 3D printing is rewriting the rules, or it is a game-changing technology, even in the medicine also. Why I'm using these or throwing these words? Definitely, the conventional approach was for a dentist used to take impression from the mouth. The dentures will be made through the impression technique. So that was the conventional practice before 3D printing. So then everything we have to talk about before 3D printing, and what is the surgical procedure after 3D printing. So it has made such a mark in medicine. So everywhere. So I may be presenting a very few cases here, or maybe very few domains of expertise in medicine. You have plenty of domains of expertise in medicine, but it is no, it is firing all the cylinders in all these applications of medicine. So of course, the greatest advantage once you come to the 3D printing of this dental implantation. So as I already mentioned, if you take the impression, if you go with the conventional impression technique method, you cannot get the nerve information. Why? Because nerve is inside the bone. So impression will get only the outer surface of the bone information. But my challenge here is I want to drill a hole without damaging my root canal or inferior alveolar canal. So that is my challenge. So how to do it? So only one way of doing it is only through 3D printing, and of course with the CAD or the image processing softwares with the help of. So then you can get it scanned, and that too challenge here is you have different molar positions, and then it may have different orientations and different sizes. So ultimately, and there is a mental curve here, mental nerve or mental foramen. So which we need to take care about this thing, and this is the condyle portion. There's a bit of what you call the terminology used, the condyle, and as mandible is a lower jaw, as we discussed. But the idea here is how the 3D printing is coming to rescue here. So as usual, like start with CT or MRI by using medical image processing softwares like Mimix or any other substitute software to do this job. And further you integrate with the 3D printing process. And of course, we have used the dimension machine. So this was a bit early cases which I used to work one of the DST project under the Young Scientist Award, that is during long back, maybe 2008-9 time. So then we used to use this dimension SST modeler of the machine to print this, and which we can see. And of course, if it is a SLA, it would have been better. I do agree, but SLA is not so much cheap during that time. But during that time, even FDM is also not cheap. Nowadays, you got FDM is very cheap because of Scott Crump patents got expired, and then you have a DIY and RepRap movement. So if we are enjoying the FDM technology as cheaper as it now. But anyway, then this is I am talking about 2007 2008 time. So then we have used this FDM, this ABS plastic through the FDM dimension machine. And as in the previous slide also, there are two missing tooth. And this we have done for one of the case in Narana Dental College. So where this they can use for the rehearsal the surgery, as I already mentioned. So they can use this drill bits like pilot drill and then actual drill, right? So then they can do all that rehearsal on this model, not on the patient um, anymore in the operation theater. Now whatever they can, why? Because it is derived from the patient. So then what could be the orientation and what could be the size of the molar and the implant where it's going to be fitted, and then we can do all that pilot drilling, actual drilling, all that stuff we can do on this, and then you can come out with kind of and then directly you can go to the operation theater, and whatever you rehearsal previous to the surgery, so then you can do, and then you can fix the crown on top of this implant. And of course it is not implant exactly, before that we need to place it, and then we fix the implant, and top of it crown will come. So and then immediately we can see whether whatever you have drilled and you have kept this kind of cap before implanting it, before the implantation, so which we can see the placement, whether it is intact with the bone or not. So just we can see immediately on this. And that is what where it was given an opportunity to know the implant. Otherwise they may be using a standard implants, but that may not be fitting actual to the patient specific. Why? Because they have standard sizes, and very few vendors will be giving that kind of implants, the titanium implants. So but here the 3D printing will giving you an opportunity to give an customized solution. And then we'll move to the next case study, that is case 3. It's a mandibular distraction osteogenesis. As I already mentioned, there are very good developments as far as the medical procedures are concerned. Huge developments are happening, and one among is a distraction osteogenesis. What it will do is, so you may use a kind of a screw kind of a device that will help you out to guide the growth of the bone. So normally if you cut open the bone and leave the gap, and bone it will be having its own beautiful property of natural bone growth, it will be happening. So that depends on age, sex and all, what is the rate of the bone growth and all, it will depend. But what you are trying to do here in this distraction osteogenesis, so they will take that distractor, normally they will call as a distractor. So it may have a screw kind of arrangement. So it can be an internal distractor or external distractor. You have several distractors to based on the patient the condition, or whether you want to go with the internal or external. So then we can decide what kind of a distractor you are going to use. And basically this is for bone reconstructive surgeries. Normally they use this kind of an device. So but that device, how it will be helpful for the what you call, then 3D printing and that device, how it is getting connected, that we'll see very soon in the upcoming slides. So here which we can easily find that there is some defect or birth defect, which we can see the bone is not grown properly here, how it has grown on the other side. So that is the thing which we can know. And normal opening of the mouth is around 4 to 5 centimeters. So then she may not be having that also because of this abnormality, or um, the growth of the bone is not happened properly. So right from the proportionate growth of the bone is not happened, and because of that she is having that problem. And then normal opening, she may not be able to attain normal opening of the mouth, and which we can see there is a defect on the different views. And of course you start with, as usual, like we started with the mimic software to segment, region grow it, and then we need to now this is what where you can see in a mimic software, once you generate the 3D model, and which we can see how it is you know the kind of what you call the asymmetricity or defect or whatever you call. So which we have this kind of a thing, which we can see what we need to do. So if we take it at the center, I think next slide maybe it may explain. But this is what I am talking about. um, a distractor where it will fix, and you have a screw, and the patient, he or she can turn this screw daily or one revolution, or again depends on the bone growth, how much you are attaining for this patient. um, so we need to do that distraction kind of a thing, so that we can plan everything on these biomodels. Once you have the biomodel, so then you can plan all these calculations or vector calculations or whatever they used to do normally. So but on seeing the images or on seeing the virtual models they used to do, but now they have an opportunity to do that thing on the biomodels. And this we have printed on a Mojo 3D printer. This is the post processing equipment. Narayana was explaining yesterday. I was watching. She is explaining about this. This water soluble supports from the Mojo Stratasys Mojo printer, and finally once you do post processing, removing the supports, and then through that water soluble, and this is what the ABS model, which we can see the abnormality here, right? Um, if it is symmetric means it is something like how a Ritik Roshan looks like, or the Aishwarya Rai looks like, right? So it's a perfect symmetry, right? So but if you have unsymmetric, and definitely you have to have this kind of a thing, and on top of it your appearance is matters about your bone, right? So how your bone inside, so as for that your appearance will come out. And similarly here what we need to do, of course we need to twist it. Our aim is to get it symmetric, means it should be a semicircular shape, so it is not like this. It got, we need to twist it. So and then that's what we are going to do with that instrument or so-called distractor. So then of course we need to move this portion from here to here, and rather than which you can see, so they can use these biomodels no for even see, it should be a semicircle if a person with the normal anatomy, but which we can see this is the problem. And because of that you see this the ramus height from one side, so it is this much, and if you see this ramus height on the other side, so then it is very small if you compare this ramus height. And what we need to do, we need to stretch this, we need to stretch this ramus bone as for the length of this one. So this is as we understood that this will be um, the the good part of it, and this is what the malfunctioning or the problem which we need to encounter, and of course which we need to stretch it, this bone. So and getting this length, So, and of course we need to twist it, then only you will get right the, we need to twist like this, and we need to extend this ramas height from this side also, and then we will get attain the symmetricity. That's what these vector calculations will be done on this patient. And finally, so which we can see, this was the initial condition of the patient when before the surgery initiated. And after some time, which we can see still there is a distractor, and some during the transformation of this um, surgery, and so in the middle point of time, maybe 1 month or 2 months or so, and slowly, which we can see now how the face is getting, shaped into some extent. It is coming a good shape. Why? Because you are able to reconstruct that bone, and then that's what you are trying to do, maybe by using the distractor, things like that. So, and then finally, this was the initial condition, and this is the final condition, but still we can see it is not 100% symmetric. Yes, you are correct, because the bone growth will be there. She is 80-year-old. We have done 3 or 4 years back. Now she may be 12-year-old, but the bone growth will be there. A good growth rate will be there during the teenage. So that's what probably it got overcorrected, and it should be corrected finally once she turns 18, 19 years of age, and it should be finally final setting should be done. Uh, so this is what which we have come to the second level of application, not only diagnosing or just for using the biomodels for placing the implant, but we have used this for the planning the surgery or helping the distractor calculations or things like that. But directly, we didn't do any implantation so far, but which it will be for the planning the surgery. And of course, next we made an attempt um, to implant one thing into one of the patient, but we could not succeed. But let me explain my failure story also. So if you explain all success stories, it's not good, right? So let me explain the failure story of this case. Of course, this is the case. As we know that better you come wherever you have a complex surgery, then you don't come regular routine surgeries. Don't use 3D printing wherever you have complex surgeries, and then only use 3D printing, which otherwise it is not possible with the conventional surgical procedures. So this is a ameloblastic fibroma of mandible, or otherwise called as a cancerous bone reconstruction. So the reconstruction is same, but earlier case by birth, but this is because of the cancer. So this fellow, because of his food habits, um, this fellow might have got cancer. So because of consuming the tobacco products, so which we can see there is a cancerous bone here. So which otherwise, if you are not removing this cancerous bone, so it may spread. But anyway, we need to cut this portion. Then how much we need to cut, where we need to cut, right? So definitely 3D printing will come to the rescue. So such kind of say this is what we can use softwares like Thematic or Mimics or any other software to copy and mirror it, and further how much portion we need to cut it. And we have designed even implant, uh, and 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 probably yesterday um, you were showing some models, but this we have printed at but not on machine, our machine, and we printed this in one of the SLM machines in Australia with Professor Ian Gibson. So we have conducted one GIAN course last year also, and previous to that we have even conducted one more GIAN course. During that time, we have designed and we have sent it to the Australia, and he printed for us. That is on SLM 125 machine at Deakin University, Australia, and we would like to acknowledge Professor Ian Gibson for printing of these models. And of course, which we can see this lattice structures, this and all we designed, and we sent the design to him, and it got printed. And somehow um, the doctors are satisfied, and we are about to implant, but implantation is not that easy to, as we work on the biomodels, but we have several clearances and several certifications and things like that. So because of that reason we could not, but at least what we have done in this case is, so as usual, like FDM model will be supplied, and then these um, steel plates normally they fix and do, and then afterwards they have done bone grafting. Normally they use a bone grafting, they remove this portion from that cancerous bone here, which you can see, they cut it and they use this plate, and then they take the thigh bone. Normally that's a bone grafting normally they do, but they have done this bone grafting, but still recently we got an inquiry from the same surgeon saying that can we reopen the site and can we implant it? Why? Because now we have a success story after this, and we could able to implant 2 3 implantations after this, and then now they're asking us why, because it is not a successful um, surgery through a conventional surgery, that is through bone grafting. So, and of course this is what conventionally, and at least to some extent these models are helpful for this case. And let me come to the next case study. This is a temporal mandibular joint ankylosis called TMJ ankylosis. So this TMJ is a portion where your lower jaw and upper jaw will meet. Actually, this is a one case where she has been suffering right from the birth. She has been suffering. She could not open her mouth properly, even 1 centimeter. Why? Because as we understood, 4 to 5 centimeters is a normal opening, but even she could not able to a single centimeter of mouth opening. She used to take the liquids predominantly with that great difficulty. The problem here is her TMJ got fused. Normally, one side it is okay, but other side, which you can see, the lower jaw and the upper jaw, so there must be a free movement. So if you remove this, the lower jaw will come out, but 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 unfortunately by birth, so her lower jaw it got fused into the upper jaw. So means she could not have an articulated what you call, this articulation is not possible because it got fused. So the biggest challenge is then how to cut this and how to make it again. And luckily the other side TMJ is um, good, so then we can have some support like which we can mirror the same dimensions from that to this. That's what we have done, and then using the thematic and mimic softwares, and of course and further this is also, first we need to do a reconstruction surgery, like as I mentioned, this is the distractor, and this is 19 mm one side and 21 mm other side. We need to stretch the bone, and which we can see now it got set, and this is the previous condition. And once you move this, you are advancing this lower jaw, say, and then it got set, right? So from initially it was this much offset, and once you do advancing this bone through this distractor and this 3D models and helping it, so then um, you can use it for this kind of mm, thing for once you advance this bone, and it will get set. That is the one surgery. It has to undergo 2 surgeries. So one surgery is this reconstruction through the distractor osteogenesis procedure. And next one is to yeah, this is what which we need to fix this distractor, yeah, and things like that. So then next step is to, yeah, okay, this is the initial state, and after that first surgery, and this is what the teeth got aligned because of this advancement of this lower jaw. And then, and but the next biggest challenge is in front of us is the TMJ. The TMJ, as I already given what is the TMJ, and then you have a nose and a lot of challenge here. So this is what which we need to rupture it out virtually, right? Virtually. Otherwise, if you don't these, you don't have these tools, and they should have done physically. So such a nasty practice they do normally. Yeah, we don't know they will give anesthesia and all what they are doing We don't know, right? So, but thanks to this technologies, where otherwise this will be a brutal practice, conventional brutal practice. But anyway, we have, thanks to these technologies, where we can use this for such a kind of a complex surgeries, or such a kind of a painful surgeries. Painful in the sense, maybe, yeah. So so as I already mentioned, like, we can copy the things from that side to this side, and then initially, and the challenge here is normally, that is a joint between lower jaw and upper jaw, and there must be a disc between, this is called a fossa component. And if you go with the metal to metal contact, then will be a friction and things like that. Then we need to, for that, so what we have done is, this is done with but right now all are polymer parts, but finally you want to print it, this geometric portion, that is upper jaw, is in titanium. And this is not a titanium. Why? Because it's titanium. This also will come and sit here. So this is also titanium. The red one is a metal titanium we have planned. And this is a, of course, this is a biocompatible polymer material, which is a bit harder. It's not like ABS or PLA maybe. So it got fused together, and this is what we planned. And then these are the metal implants, which it got printed in a metal machine. And this is what the final assembly, like, as I said, this is going to be the on the geometric arch. Geometric arch means the upper jaw, it will go, and we need to fix it through the screws. And here is a lower jaw, and this is the condyle portion, and this is a fossa component where it will go and fit it here. So this is what we need to do, and we need to rupture this. Why? Because she got fusing of this into the, then we have removed that, and this is what it's going to happen during the surgery. So we need to fix this implant inside the, and of course, as I already mentioned, you have some holes here. So just like that, they won't use the drill bits. Then we have designed a guide for them, so where just holding that guide, so they can drill the holes on the bone, on the lower jaw as well as upper jaw. Yeah, and this is what during the surgery. In fact, he's Professor Ian Gibson, and he's my scholar Santosh, and myself. Even we personally there during this surgery. And as I mentioned, like, I invited him for a Gian course, and during that time we have planned this surgery. Yeah, so this is what we have even say that succeeded. Why? Because once you release that fusing of this TMJ, and now you can see she could able to open normal 4 centimeter opening of the mouth. And this is what in the real surgery. So as I already showed these implants, and it got fixed through that um, template or a guide by using that. So it got fixed here, and she's a patient, and which you can see. And after the surgery, uh, so earlier even she could not even open the mouth even a 1 centimeter or so, but now she could able to have a normal opening, normal chewing, normal biting. So, and now, yeah, definitely, then we took a risk. Why? Because um, she is a 21-year-old, but right from the birth she was in that way. But uh, we'll try it. If it clicks, so definitely the societal life of her is improved. If it not clicks, it doesn't have any life threat. But she has been like that for the past 20 years or so. So if it fail also, maybe, but she has been like that. So for the past 20 years. So then definitely we took a risk rather than, and then for that also there will be a lot of concerns, a lot of, anyway. So we could able to succeed. And then my last case study is one more case study. This is called as a basal osseointegrated implant. To say a story about this case, actually this case, this is a one accident case. This is accident case. During the accident, he lost the 5 teeth on the upper jaw, and not only teeth, behind the teeth you have a bone, right? So even he lost the bone also. The challenge here is, if you are having a bone, that is the support, and then you can fix the implant, and you drill and then you fix the implant with the support of the bone, but bone is not there. So that's what, so this is a complex or a typical case. Why it is typical? So your standard implants where it is available in the market, so it won't survive the purpose. So then where definitely your 3D printing will come into the rescue, where you can customize your implant or customize your as for the patient condition. So right, so this is a brief case description. Due to the major accident, he lost the 5 teeth, as I explained. There's a partial bone damage also here, which we can see this bone. Yeah, here you can, which you can see, yeah, all 5 teeth is gone, and then the bone also he lost. The bone also he lost here, which you can see. And of course, like how you have a nerve in the lower jaw and you have a upper jaw, there is one more nerve also. Then we need to search for the nerve relieving option. Density of the bone is not uniform, as another challenge, but the angle of the teeth placement. And one more challenge is this fracture or this defect is not a symmetric defect, which you can see. So this is a accident. How can we say that you broke your bone in a symmetric fashion? Because it's accident. So then we need to indigenously, or we need to custom designed implant. Why? Because we can see the length of this and length of this is not same, which you can see there are some measurements here. And these are some of the standard implants where they use. And nowadays they are using, why it's the basal osseointegrated, so they are not using the screws will create a lot of infection inside the mouth. Then they are not using the screws. Instead of that, they may be using this kind of a basal osseointegrated kind of implants. But what in our case, so the standard implants are not working out, so then we need to design our own indigenous implant, and further we need to test it for the, what you call, the normal biting force, chewing force, and then we need to do a kind of FEM analysis on that. And then once you're done, that is okay, the implant is withstanding the loads, whatever the chewing, biting, and other forces coming, then okay. And then we printed initially with the PLA only, that is a small printer. Even this we printed on FlashForge printer. Initially we want to uh, know the form or the thing, and then we printed it. And of course, this is what we could not accommodate even a 5 teeth, but 4 teeth is very much accommodated here. And of course, this is what we have done. And then, sorry, and this is the implant where we designed, and this with along with the supports, the metal 3D printer, and of course, which you can see, this is what it's going to be. And this will go and fit. There is a just that is again the skill of a surgeon, where this is kind of a snap fit. So it will, they have fitted this here in the thing where you can see this is the implant. Yeah, and it's got fitted. And now you can see this is where you have osseo-integrated. This we have published in a rapid prototyping journal. This is one of the prestigious journal, as you know, that under this additive manufacturing or 3D printing, this was one of the best journals in the AM community. So we have done this is a osseo-integrated thing, and this is finally where this is what it's going to be, the 4 teeth. And you see the placement of the implant. It got Why? Because why it is not symmetric? There are reasons why it should be like this, like that. So definitely we have come out with a kind of a fitment of this implant, and now we have been following it up. So now there is no uh, side effects or the complications. So far so good. So, and we can have a several case studies, or which we need to have some tumors or some cleft cases, cleft also, which we can see there is a cleft case or some tumor which we need to remove this portion, this much portion here, and some, this is accident case. Like you can come across a lot of cases in this fashion, but which one we need to work on, or whether all the cases the 3D printing is able to tackle, the answer is no. But it may be not emergencies like this. And if it is emergency like this, if you want to print on FDM machine the skull, it will take 1 or 1.5 day to print the entire skull. But it may be on DLP, you can now able to print it in maybe 12 hours, or it may be less than that, 10 hours or so maybe. But still we need to have some kind of evaluate before you just start into venturing it into any medical application of 3D printing. So let me conclude my presentation with this future direction of 3D printing or bioprinting or organ printing. Normally you refer. So what is this bioprinting is all about? So then, as you know that, can you print the heart valves, or can you print the kidneys, or can you print the bladder? This is the bladder and this is the kidney, right? So on and so forth. So can you print these, the complex organs? So the answer is yes, people are able to print it. So how do you they do? So of course they may extract the cell of your own body, the living cell of the patient body, they may extract, and they will combine with some kind of what you call some nutrients or proteins. They, you can add them to that, and then put it in incubator, and of course you grow it and you culture it rather than, and of course you do some kind of test, means like then you may get doubt, then how do you test the, how do you characterize or how do you test the cell strength or cell properties? Yes, you can do with the bioreactors. So you can do that kind of test, and then finally you implant, or just you again this cell cultured, or the cell which it has grown or it got matured, um, and then attained or survived in the environment, and then again you will put back, either you do repair or do replace. So that's what, put back into the human body in terms of repairing or in terms of replacing whatnot. So that is about the organ printing or bioprinting. But there will be a several challenges. It is not that easy what we have been doing with the bone, right? It's not a bone. It has to function several things. Bone, it has to take only load, right? But it has to do several things. But I don't have much of the time to play some video here, but I hope I have given some insight about this. And let me summarize what I have done so far. Maybe any bio 3D printing application, it has to start with a medical scanning technique like a CT, MRI, or PET, or ultrasound or data, or any um, medical scanning modality. It has to start, and of course we need to have some medical image processing softwares also to enhance your the images or the data which you have captured from the patient. It should be improvised by using some kind of a softwares, and then you may get some virtual model initially, and then you may use it for the, this is, I'm trying to put all the applications here in one order with the priority wise, like virtual models, diagnostic models, pre-planning models, customized implants and prosthetics. And of course that is about the models, but you can do develop devices. So those devices may be implantable. Every time it need not be implantable. Sometimes it may be non-implantable tools, guides, templates. And of course you have some support devices also like arm braces, knee braces, so on and so forth, and health monitoring devices also you can. Somebody was asking pacemaker, or somebody somewhere with some discussion, like you can make even a pacemaker also if you um, do have a lot of developments in the biomedical biomaterials as far as 3D printing is concerned. Yes, you can. As you know that biomaterial materials for 3D printing, say in the universe, um, say maybe, I'm not sure, maybe some, is it some 10,000 or 20,000, or maybe let me put it in a percentage wise. Say if a conventional procedures can make 100% parts, the materials, but 3D printing may print maybe 5 to 10%. I may be exaggerating also, but coming to the biocompatible material, it may be a 0.5%, or it may be less than that. So so then coming to the finally, we have discussed some tissue engineering or the organ printing. So that's what we have discussed. And let me acknowledge, this is not a job or a task normally you do alone, right? So then the requirement has to come from the doctor, and the end user is also doctor, but we are doing in between the design and fabrication. But the initiation should come from the doctor. The end user is also doctor in the sense doctor community, maybe patient. So we would like to acknowledge a few people here, especially the people like Shekhar Reddy and Aditya Mohan, oral maxillofacial surgeons at Panniya Dental College and Research Center at Hyderabad, um, especially for oral and maxillofacial cases. For all that majority of the oral and maxillofacial cases we have done with the collaboration of these two doctors. And coming to the dental applications where we have done, that is with the Mahesh from Narayana Dental College, Nellore. And the financial support given by the DST in terms of purchasing Mimic software, Thematic software, and some consumables or some implants, sometimes maybe. So we would like to acknowledge the DST and SCRB, the two projects under that, which we have financially got the support from the DST and SCRB. And last but not the least, so the people who are directly involved, maybe if you see some of the publications, my UG student like Ghosh, one we worked with some dental cases, and of course PG students, a very few PG students are involved as far as this work is concerned. So, but one or two, so I would like to acknowledge that one or two PhD students also, but predominantly so far whatever I have presented, maybe 6 cases. So definitely that is the property, or that is the what you call the asset of my PhD scholars. It's not my asset, but just I am presenting here. So I would like to acknowledge my PhD scholars to name my first PhD scholar under me worked as Manmadachari. So where you can see his name in my previous slides also in terms of publications where we have published. So I would like to acknowledge Manmadachari. And Santosh is my JRF, worked under me in the project, and further he has converted as a PhD. I would like to acknowledge Santosh. And the craniofacial cases and the modeling and the analysis is done by Fanindra. So I would like to acknowledge these 3 students for their partial work I have presented here. So I would like to acknowledge these 3 students. Yeah, and that's all my presentation from my side. So then, if you're having some questions, so I am ready to answer. Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning.
Sir, my question is like, if an implant is done, will it be of the same shape as before?
Means, can you elaborate? Means, okay.
Like, for example,
Okay. After implanting, whether it is going to deform, that is your doubt?
Yes.
No, that's what actually it depends on. No, you don't see in that way. So it should going to be an osteo integration between the bone and the implant. And of course, you cannot say that implant is implant, natural bone is natural bone. So definitely there will be a deviation, or rather than you cannot expect that it's going to be the total replacement or the substitute for. Definitely there will be a challenge which we cannot. Why? Because a bone and titanium. How can we know that
Yes.
the same displacement or the same? How can we expect a mechanical? Definitely, but then what? Then what is the solution? So if you are not using, so then what is the conventional way of doing it? So is it not better than the conventional what they are doing as a bone grafting or something else? The surgical procedure they do. Definitely, you are correct. Definitely, there will be a it, but it won't behave like a native bone. Definitely, there
Yes,
will
sir.
be a challenge. There will be a difference. Yes.
And what materials do you use for these implants, sir? Specifically for the bones, the internal bones?
But again, internal bones, like in our case we have used only the titanium 6-4 only, whatever the implantation we have used, that too this is a oral maxillofacial cases, either a lower jaw or upper jaw. So
Okay.
we have used only the titanium 6-4, but even it can be peak also people are trying to peak, it will be having its own advantages also. It is a polymer basically. People are trying with peak and other materials also, but we have used only the titanium 6-4. Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, I want to know that like you said in that girl's case, she's small in age, and after that, obviously implant will not grow with her age. So then, what will be will it be necessary to perform surgery again and again as she grows and
No, no, no.
put new?
No. One thing. First, let me correct. We didn't implant anything for her. First, let me correct.
No, no,
Um,
no. Like an example, I'm asking.
no, that's what I'm telling. So actually, we have used the 3D printing model for the planning the surgery and rehearsal the surgery, and coming out the conclusion saying that how much length we need to stretch the bone. So that was the idea. We have used 3D printing, 3D printed biomodel for that, but rest will be the conventional practice, like where you have the distractor, and distractor will be used for during the observation or the during the time. But there is no implant. Bone will be having its ability to grow, but you are guiding the bone growth through the distractor, and how much bone growth and how much extent we need to lengthen the bone, or such kind of mechanics or such kind of calculations, vector calculations. Mm, we have used 3D printing models. Why? Because it has derived from her own um, body or the anatomy. So that is the idea. So otherwise also, mm, they have to use the same procedure, but what they are going to get the advantage is they are going to have the customized solution. Means the the data which it was derived from the her own anatomy. So that is the advantage which here she is going to get in this case. But implantation, there is no implantation. That device is only a temporary device, so it will be there for say maybe, if I am correct, maybe some 3 or 4 months during that growth of the bone, and then she used to, even she used to turn that screw. Typically it may be half a revolution or so per day, so it may extend 0.5 mm bone growth per day, maybe things like that. Say yeah, that is the typical usage of 3D printing technology here. If you compare with the conventional practice, so where otherwise they should have taken the impression, some other means where they have to try with that calculations, or through digital data they should have tried. But 3D printing is opportunity for them to have this kind of a thing to enhance. But implantation, let me correct, there is no implant for her, just that is the distraction osteogenesis by using that device. So how much it should be done, and how we can do it and all, then we have 3D printed models as supplemented for that kind of conclusions which it can they have drawn based on that. Yeah.
Okay. And sir, one more thing I wanted to ask. So one more thing I wanted to ask. The bone, human bone is porous, obviously, but the
Correct.
porosity is varying porosity. The bone is
Correct.
not evenly porous, right?
Correct. Correct.
So if we just want to replicate that thing in 3D, like for 3D printing, for example, to replace a bone, then
Mm.
how will it be possible to replicate it like completely? Because it is not evenly porous, right?
Definitely. It may even vary also once you put up the age, and then definitely it's not a constant, it's a variable. You are correct. Yeah. Then
Yes.
what we are going to do is we are trying to mimic as, but it is not 100% solution. You are absolutely correct. You are not mimicking 100% the variable porosity, things like that. Yeah, even that porosity also, it will, the once you put up the age, and then you will having this kind of problem of what you call so then the porosity your bones also getting deteriorated, or if you put up the age also. Yes, yes, but the
Correct.
thing here is, yeah, so at least what we can do is, but you have a 3D printer, and then at least you are able to produce lattice structures. So can you produce a lattice structures through conventional practice?
No.
So yeah, so that at least,
Yes.
mm, yes, yeah,
Okay, sir. Thank you.
okay.
Good morning, sir. I have a question regarding the bio implant. You have explained the dental implant case study. So you have opted the selective laser melting process for producing this implant. So, sir, I was thinking that so can we not use the investment casting process by using a bio model of FDM printed part?
Yes, you can do it, absolutely. You can do it, means not FDM. So FDM means like, you can make a sacrificial, let me put it in that way. FDM means which material you want to try PLA. No, but you cannot. But the idea of investment casting, as you know, that the pattern should be a sacrificial pattern. Once you heat it, so it should be vanish. It should not have a residual left out. Is it a PLA will give such kind of a pattern? I don't think so. It's not possible with.
So, sir, by printing the wax print,
Yes,
by the model by wax printing,
yes,
that
yes, you can.
that can be done by this.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. It's possible. People are doing it. So if you are not having 3D printer, metal 3D printer, what you will do? See, one option is, so everybody need not have a metal 3D printer. It's very costly, or even the material is also costly. Titanium is also so. But we can people are doing in that way also. But the challenge here is the contamination. You should not get it contaminated. Like say, if you are using it for implantation, then you have to be double careful, or then we have to get the clearances also. Like there will be a huge risk of contaminating if you are going with the investment casting.
Can you do the processing of this casting implant and then improve it?
Yes, it can be done. It can be done, but you be careful. You don't contaminate, or you follow the regulations of FDA and other regulatory bodies. What they suggest, then you follow that. Absolutely, it's possible. But but who is going to give the approval or a clearance for doing
Yes,
that? So if you are
yes,
confident to get the FDA or any other regularity bodies which will give that, definitely. If you are not having metal 3D printer, you are looking for metal part. So only the next option is only wax investment casting through wax printing printers. So you can print the pattern and then get it casted through the titanium or through whatever biocompatible material. It can be done, but you follow the regulations. Yeah, you can do it.
yes, sir. Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, I have one question regarding dental implant. If any patient want to have molar implant, only for one molar implant, so in case of SLA, how much it will cost, like from scanning to the production?
No, you want to use SLA for that? No. Yeah, you want to get, yeah. But SLA part will give you only the epoxy. SLA means it's basically epoxy, but you are saying that implantation. But implantation, you have to use some. If I am correct, it should be titanium, or it can be a cobalt chrome, or kind of a medical. But SLA is not costly. You can even get the whatever you. No, your question is how much it will cost you, right? So to scan the
Yes, sir.
one molar you want
Yes.
to scan, and further you want to produce an SLA model. You use the
Yes, sir.
requirement. Yeah,
Yes,
that is very few minimal money you can. My suggestion is don't go with the SLA. You go with the DLP technology. It is further. But if you compare with the SLA cost and the DLP cost, so it is you can reduce further 50% or 60% cost if you go with the DLP
Okay.
rather than SLA. But it may be costing.
Okay.
You go with the DLP, I don't think so. Maybe one molar for scanning, in the sense like nowadays you have open source softwares also. You can even get the DICOM image of that. Maybe if you consider the CT charges also, so definitely CT charges better than
Okay.
CBCT maybe preferably may get better than a conventional CT. So that may be costing around, if I am correct, maybe around 2000 or 2500 per scan of this. And then further,
Okay.
you can use some open source software to do it that one. Or you get some services from any medical image processing software. They may charge you. That I am not sure, but how much they will charge you. But if you can use the open source
Okay.
software, to very much you can do that one, DICOM images, and then further it can be STL conversion. You have a slice 3R, a slice 3D, or other.
Okay.
Yeah, that you can free of cost you can do. And SLA printing of one molar, it may not be costing you around 300 rupees or maybe 500 rupees, not more than that. Yeah, maybe totally 3000 or 4000. I think you can get it done.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, I have a doubt. Sir, can you please name some of the open source software which can be used to convert the DICOM file into 3D models?
I have already given a big list. If you are there in my design processing, my second lecture, second day,
Yes, sir,
I
I
will.
was there.
Anyway, I will put a WhatsApp group that list. Okay, I will do that.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, participant. Sir, next session will start. The time is going on.
Okay, thank you.